LiberalViewer presents.
So there's been a little coverage about these anti-discrimination laws that are passing in some southern states. This is going to be about North Carolina, and I'm going to show two clips from NBC's Meet the Press, both a synopsis of the North Carolina law and then this bogus justification from the governor of North Carolina. But before I get to those, I want to show this really funny clip from Saturday Night Live last night. This is Vanessa Bayer playing a Christian baker, showing how she's the real victim of these anti-discrimination laws in that clip here.
Cake?
Of course. Where's the lucky bride?
He's right here.
Until her faith was tested.
Now make the cake.
They wanted her to spit in the face of God.
I said make the cake.
I can't do it.
From the makers of God on the Run and Angel in Denim, the Kim Davis story.
What are you thinking? Gays are the most powerful force in America.
A story of liberal elites run wild.
You'll be hearing from our Jewish lawyer.
My name is Shmuel from the ACLU. You're in a lot of trouble, Beth.
I think that was really funny, and now I want to show the actual news coverage a little bit. Like I said, first here is Chuck Todd on NBC's Meet the Press giving a short summary of this North Carolina law that was kind of being parodied by Saturday Night Live there, as I will discuss after you watch that clip here.
Front lines of the latest battle for LGBT rights. Here's what happened. The state's largest city, Charlotte, passed an ordinance that prevented businesses from discriminating against lesbians, gays, and transgender people. In response, Governor McCrory quickly signed into law a bill that's being called by some anti-gay, the so-called bathroom law. The law does a few things. First, it invalidates the Charlotte ordinance and prevents other municipalities in the state from passing similar protections. Second, it requires that transgender people use the bathroom and locker room matching their birth certificate gender rather than the gender they identify with. Governor McCrory has been forced to defend and clarify the law's intent, which goes much further than just...
So yeah, Governor McCrory, Pat McCrory of North Carolina, is the guest on Meet the Press. And a couple extra things I want to point out about that law. I thought that was a good summary for Meet the Press. One of the things they don't point out is there's this case that the Supreme Court decided, Romer versus Evans, about this Colorado law that nullified local anti-discrimination laws that protected LGBT rights, against like employment discrimination, etc. And the Supreme Court said that you can't take those rights away that have been protected by local ordinances, which is one reason they rushed this through. And the other thing that, well, I'll say one more comment till after you watch this back and forth between Chuck Todd and the governor of North Carolina trying to justify this law here.
Executive, do you have regrets signing this law?
I'm going to, as governor, as I did with mayor, I will always call out government overreach. In this example, the city of Charlotte, where I was mayor for 14 years, did government overreach. And what your pre-clip didn't mention was it was the left that brought about the bathroom bill, not the right, in the city of Charlotte, like the city of Houston tried to do and was rejected by 61% of the vote. The city of Charlotte passed a bathroom ordinance mandate on every private sector employer in Charlotte, North Carolina, one of the largest, 15th, 16th largest cities in the United States of America. And I think that's government overreach. It's not government's business to tell the private sector what their bathroom, locker room, or shower practices should be. Not only the private business, but also the YMCA and other nonprofit organizations. And by the way, this is what 29 other states also do not have, these types of restroom, locker room, and bathroom policies.
So I thought, you talked about overreach. Okay, you say Charlotte overreached.
Right.
How did the state of North Carolina, the state government, not overreach in just the same way? You mentioned Houston. Voters made that decision.
Right.
You could make a case. Voters made the decision in Charlotte. Charlotte rejected it, then elected 2 new members of the city council. This has been a long debate in the city of Charlotte. This is where they came down. You guys debated for like 10 seconds. I mean, don't you regret the time of debate?
Actually, Charlotte's vote was a very little debate. They just had a lot of public speakers speaking for and against.
No, that night. But this has been months. This has been months of a debate.
Real quick, Charlotte had originally turned it down, just like Houston has, and there hasn't been outrage. There wasn't outrage toward Charlotte when they turned it down initially. There was an outrage toward Houston, Texas when they turned it down recently. But I tell you what I've learned through this is we've got to have more dialogue and not threats. I was in Hamlet, North Carolina, a small town that could be in any town in the United States of America. I walked into a buffet restaurant, African-American buffet restaurant, and the people just welcomed me with open arms and said, "Thanks for protecting us."
An African-American buffet restaurant. I wonder why I had to point that out, because otherwise we wouldn't understand that there was this disconnect that he says in the rest of that clip between, Main Street and the real people in corporate America that don't understand why we have to discriminate against gays and need to be protected from gay people coming into our African-American owned buffet restaurants or whatever. I thought that was bogus. And one other thing I wanted to point out, under the Obama administration, Title VII that protects against sex discrimination in employment, etc., also protects against gender identification discrimination, because if you're discriminated against based on the gender with which you identify, that is sex discrimination, at least according to the Obama administration. I think the EEOC and various executive departments, and that also wasn't taken into account in Governor McCrory's answer. I mean, his whole answer was bogus.
So, hey, alongside everything else today, turns out there's been some huge news tonight out of North Carolina. The U.S. Justice Department has now formally told North Carolina that its new discrimination law violates the Civil Rights Act, so it's illegal. Federal lawyers told Governor McCrory today that the law violates the federal ban on discriminating against workers on the basis of sex. In this case, the rights of transgender state employees in North Carolina. The Justice Department tells the state that state officials have until Monday, as in less than a week from now, to confirm that North Carolina will not enforce this law. North Carolina has 5 days to comply or risk being sued by the federal government and potentially losing billions of dollars in federal funding.
I YouTube, you decide.